Okay, now we come to our final session. And the purpose of this session is to give mainly our students and also faculty colleagues an idea of what kind of research is going on at Northeastern University in the area of sustainability. So we have three representatives, three examples from three different parts of the university. One is the engineering school, and where there is a center for, or actually I think it's a more interdisciplinary center, sustainability and data science. And then we have the School of Public Policy. And then we have, of course, our business school. And we have three examples. I'm going to turn the floor over to them very quickly without further ado. Maria Ivanova, professor and director of the School of Public Policy at Northeastern, will both be a panelist and moderate the panel. And she's joined by Aayushi Mishra, who's part of Arup Ganguly's Center for Sustainability and Data Science, and my own colleague, Kevin Chuah, from the Department of International Business and Strategy. Over to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ravi. Thank you very much all for being here. And it is truly an honor and a pleasure to moderate and participate in this final panel of the Sustainability Summit at Northeastern. Before starting, or as we start, I just want to say that a number of people are watching us online too. And my mom is watching from Bulgaria. So I want to say hello, Mom. But that's what we do, is that we actually light this fire and it spreads from here. And people are watching even when we don't know they're watching. And she said, oh yeah, I see your table has a lot of people right now. I see you're eating. Oh my God. But that's the point. The light that we start here continues and will continue. And all of you will take it as you graduate. And all of us will continue to light it up here as we hold this space when we are in the faculty spaces. And it's truly a distinct honor to be moderating a panel on sustainability at Northeastern, a university I only joined a little over 2 years ago because our son went to Northeastern. And I said, oh, I want to be there. I want to be where he is getting a degree when he's now finished. But today is also World Teachers' Day. And this brings us full circle because when we got online to talk about what we're going to talk about in the panel, it's like, oh, let's introduce ourselves to each other. And Aayushi says, but I know you. I was like, oh, you do? She says, yes, you came to Mount Holyoke 10 years ago when she was a student at Mount Holyoke, and I visited Mount Holyoke as my alma mater where I got my degree. So we continued these concentric circles, this upward spiral, and I really hope that with all of the positivity that we heard today, and thank you so much, we have to appreciate where we are. We are getting a new life at every end of that spiral. And so I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues here and see what are we doing at Northeastern? What are we doing in engineering and data science? What are we doing in business and sustainability? And Aayushi, I'll start with you because you are the youngest on the panel. And you called me out and you said, yes, I saw you come. So tell us who you are, what you do. You're a second-year PhD student, but you're also the inaugural Lizzy Warner Fellow at the Sustainability and Data Science Laboratory.
Thank you so much, Maria. It's so nice to see all of you, and it's been a wonderful day. I'm learning so much and such impactful work from all of you. I'm very honored to be here and part of this panel. As Maria said, I'm a second-year PhD student at the College of Engineering. I'm pursuing my PhD in something called interdisciplinary engineering. So that allows you to select multiple disciplines to do your specialization in. So part of doing this degree means you get to be a part of the Sustainability and Data Sciences Lab, or the SDS Lab as we call it, here at Northeastern. So today I'm representing my advisor, Professor Arup Ganguly, so big shoes to fill, so I hope I'll do a good job. But yeah, what we do at our lab, and I can get into more detail later, but it's at the intersection of climate science, data science, machine learning, AI, climate resilience, infrastructure resilience, so all sorts of things, because climate change is not a single discipline, right? It's a multidisciplinary problem. So here we're tackling a very complex issue through a realm of multiple disciplines, and together, when we all come together, I feel we're harnessing our maximum potential.
Excellent. So what's your research question, Aayushi, for your dissertation?
Sure.
Let me play professor here.
My research question, so as I mentioned, I'm in my second year, so it's still in its final stages of development, but I'm looking at the impacts of climate change-induced migration, what we just spoke about, and its impacts on financial markets. At the moment, I've been looking specifically at the US markets, especially at a municipal bond level market, but because climate migration is a global problem, my goal is to eventually broaden my scope and look at it globally.
This really highlights the interdisciplinarity that Northeastern is. When you're in the College of Engineering, you're working on sustainability and data science, you're analyzing climate change-induced migration and its impact on financial flows. I mean, how is that an engineering question?
Yeah.
In a sense, it is, because we are engineering how we live, but it's fundamentally human, as has come through today again and again. So congratulations on carrying indeed that Northeastern spirit in your work. Kevin, over to you. You are an assistant professor in the more McKim School of Business, and tell us about your work.
Yeah, actually, it's a great segue from what Aayushi's just said about focusing there on finance, because the industry that I focus on is the investment industry. And in particular, it's what investors are doing to encourage companies that they own, companies they finance, to become more sustainable. The key factor there, years ago, that wouldn't really be considered part of business, sustainability and business being separate things. Thankfully, and I see many of my students here as well who are doing co-ops and who are working for companies that are combining sustainability and finance under that ESG moniker. So specifically what I look at is how investors work together because they all own parts of companies, how they come together and try to act as a unified voice in trying to pressure these companies and encourage these companies to adopt more sustainable practices. The most tangible example of that a group that I'm working with right now is called Climate Action 100+. They're a coalition of about 700 institutional investors, mutual funds and pension funds around the world. And they work together targeting the heaviest polluters, the companies that generate roughly 70 or 80% of global CO2 emissions. And they're trying to get these companies to commit to having climate action plans, to set targets, to then deliver and implement on those targets, change their capital allocation processes, put in place the right governance structures, and also lobby governments on a pro-climate perspective. Right? So this, as you can imagine, with all sorts of collaboration, it's very, very difficult because there's lots of competing interests and you need to coordinate. But when we look at these sustainability challenges, I think what is common across the board is how systemic these issues are and how each actor influences not only the direct relationships they have, not only the companies they're trying to influence, but then also the spillover effects to the whole, to other actors within that system. So it's going from that micro interaction all the way up to the macro, which involves a lot of complexity.
Can you give us some examples, Kevin, of the work that you're doing? Is it in particular geographies or particular sectors, and something that you have found that speaks to the challenges and maybe opportunities?
Yeah, it is global, and that makes it very, very complicated. I'd say that two things come to mind. One is in my personal life, actually, I'm also an activist, right? So I buy stock in companies, and I actually will speak to some of these companies and try to pressure them, but also working with these investors and working with these other activists. So an example there is that a group that I work with in the UK called Share Action, they coordinated a coalition of about a dozen investors with a couple of $1 trillion in assets. And we approached Barclays, which is the biggest financer of fossil fuels in the UK, in Europe actually. And we said to them, these are some demands. We'd like you to stop financing coal. We'd like you to ensure that if you're financing fossil fuels, that those companies have a climate transition plan whereby they're going to increase financing towards renewables and less to fossil fuels. And we had quite tough negotiations with them, but they ended up delivering on that. In terms of some more academic findings, some of the things that really matter is these deep relationships that investors can develop with companies. It doesn't have to be antagonistic. Mm-hmm. So when you think about the traditional shareholder activist or the traditional type of community activist, it's a lot of the stereotypical view is you're shouting at someone, right? In this setting, what I've seen is it's much more productive to have those common ground discussions. Try to understand what the constraints are from each side, what is possible, and then negotiate, how can we make that a bit quicker, please? How can we make sure that you stay in business, but you don't, in staying in business, ruin the planet for everyone else?
Thank you, Kevin. And now I'll share a little bit about my work on sustainability as a scholar of governance and in institutions, and someone who studies individuals, ideas, and institutions. So I am the director of the policy school here at Northeastern, but before that I was on the faculty at the University of Massachusetts in Boston, where I worked to create a new PhD program there, a transdisciplinary PhD program in global governance and human security. And as part of this work, I actually worked with one of my PhD students who is now at Boston University, but we developed what we called the Environmental Conventions Index. Talking about implementation, some of the issues that were discussed earlier today, we set out to measure to what extent countries implement the international agreements, the international commitments that they have signed on to. All of you have heard about the Climate Convention, right? We talk about it a lot. But there are also conventions in other areas, in pollution, in chemicals, the Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants, or the Basel Convention of the Transboundary Movement of Hazardous Wastes. And in biodiversity, in nature, there are treaties on species, like CITES, which is the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, or Ramsar, the Convention on Wetlands. And so we set out to measure whether and to what extent countries actually do what they signed up to do. We discovered as part of this analysis a rather positive and counterintuitive story, that a lot of smaller states, a lot of states would actually do what they promised to do, but A, other countries don't know about it, but B, and even more importantly, they don't even know about it, because they submit these reports, they go into an international institution, into a secretariat, and they don't even analyze across countries. And so we have created an online space where countries can put in their name and see how they measure against each other, but also against their own performance over time. And we have data for 20 years. We've trained a number of governments across the world, especially in the global south. And as part of this, I've worked quite a bit with the UN Environment Program, UNEP, which is the environmental conscience of the world, have written the academic book about that institution, but it's also a personal book, Because this goes back to the relationships that you mentioned and that have been mentioned again and again today, is when you study something, you study someone. When you study an institution, you just don't study, it's not faceless. There are people. There are the people that created it, there are people that are running it. And when you have a good relationship with the people who work there, whether for a little bit or for a long time, you actually can create a story that is richer, that has many layers. And this is how I approached my work on UNEP, and this is why it took me 20 years to write that book. But anyway, that was my dissertation once upon a time. And my research question, Aayushi, was why don't we have a World Environment Organization? And I went into the archives of the United Nations and figured, oh, we actually do. It was just imagined to be this smaller entity on the 38th floor of the United Nations. And this, I'm giving you, this is the jargon of the United Nations speak. When you say the 38th floor of the UN, that means the Office of the Secretary General, because it's on the top floor. And that means in the Office of the Secretary General that then others will see it, that it will connect to other institutions across the UN system and around the world. And as a result of that, what we now work on in my research team, but also I'm happy to say as Northeastern, is the issue of plastics, the plastic pollution. And I had the distinct honor to serve on the delegation of Rwanda, putting forward the resolution for a new global treaty on eliminating plastic pollution in March of 2022. In November is the next and hopefully last global meeting of governments to negotiate this new upcoming treaty. And Northeastern has a delegation. We actually now have a delegation that we take to these international treaties. And so I want all of you working on sustainability, interested in sustainability, from whether it's from an engineering perspective, how do we redesign plastics? Or from a business perspective, how do we make plastics less expensive? No, more expensive. How do we make different materials that would serve what we need to use the plasticity for, but would not have the chemicals or the pollutants that pollute our human bodies, the environment, and other species. So this is the space that I'm currently working on, and invite any and all of you from these various sustainability paths to reach out. And we do have something to give to the international community from Northeastern. So on, I would love to, we are almost at time now, but I'd love to hear if you were to speak to Northeastern, whether it's the students or the faculty or the president or the faculty senate, like what would be one sustainability initiative that you would say, okay, stop this and start something else? Think of, stop and start.
Why don't you go first?
I did not, this was not prepared, by the way. This is a surprise question, so.
So I think we're starting already this, but I'd like to see sustainability integrated into basically every program within Northeastern. So we have elements of that, but in a bigger way. So having a sustainability lens in engineering is quite straightforward, I think. In business, we're trying to get more of that in. But I can also imagine in sociology and the social sciences, having that becoming more front and center of mind. We've got a big AI push now, which is great. I fully support that. I'm on board with that. Part of that conversation needs to be, well, what's the sustainability impact of that? I was reading the other day that Google's carbon emissions went up 40% last year, right? Because of how much generative AI is going into what they're doing. One ChatGPT search uses 10 times the energy of a Google search, right? So you can see how that touches everything we do. Also, when you're writing your assignments, not using too much ChatGPT because of the emissions that will create. But yeah, things like that.
And something that you'd stop? Or let's give to you. You should think about it.
It's a pretty difficult question to answer as a student. I'll try my best. I would say pay more attention to disaster relief programs, but also climate migration is a story of vulnerability, right? It affects people of all socioeconomic classes, some more than others. It affects certain countries more than others. And if you look at the climate models, you can see that hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires are affecting certain parts of the world more than others. So if Northeastern, and I know that it's a very conscientious group of students here, but just that general awareness that we are on the less vulnerable side of the story, how can we get involved to help out those who are more vulnerable, I would say, is something we can start or continue.
All right. Anything that you would stop?
I have one which is, I think, very dear to your heart as well, which is, single-use plastics on campus. We have a petition that is being signed, that is being signed at the moment. For those of you involved with student government, please keep advocating for that. There are constraints, obviously. We have contracts in place that we need to fulfill for providers, but where possible, if we can put more pressure so that the journey is towards zero plastic on this campus, then fantastic.
This is exactly what I've been waiting for this space so that I could say this in public. But I would like to suggest something that's actually very simple that we could do at Northeastern, and it totally relates to the single-use plastic, but it's even smaller than that. I'd like you as students, us as faculty, us as a community to start a campaign to ban balloons. Ban balloons. It is a vanity waste. We do not need balloons to be happy. We do not need balloons to celebrate. And I would like all of the emojis of balloons not to show happiness. So this is a challenge to the students. What would be an alternative emoji than a balloon to say happy birthday? But the country of Seychelles, which is a party destination, has banned balloons. Northeastern, as a university, can ban balloons. We do not need balloons at graduation. And something that I would like to start is something that kind of seeped through the discussions today, is what touches our hearts. When you showed the picture of that boy, it was not just the clothes, it was also the expression on the face. And in the sustainability field, the more we are forced to hear the litany, the more despair we feel. The more we see how bad the world is, the less we want to do. And so what is it that inspires? How can we be inspired? So can we engage with art and culture to inspire action on sustainability? And I think we have all of the elements at Northeastern to do this transdisciplinary sustainability approach that inspires. So I would like us to work with art and culture, music, so that we inspire action on sustainability. Thank you, Ravi, for bringing us all in, and we would love to continue a conversation with you after the summary of today from Ravi. Thank you. Oh, and one last thing, actually, for my panelists. The Live As You Teach, since today is the teaching day, here is in the spirit of eliminating single-use plastics. Here is your bamboo set. You get to choose, Aayushi, first which one you would like.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you not only for moderating the session, but also bringing the gifts for the speakers, appropriately packaged. Thank you. I hope you all found that interesting, and I hope you will feel free to come up and speak to them as we conclude. And if you have any questions for them, or if you'd like to connect with them, I think that's the intention of this panel. I'm going to close now, and I know we've hit the 3 o'clock, or very close to, well, actually a bit past the 3 o'clock deadline. But I just want to take a moment to thank various people who have made this day possible. As you know, it takes a lot of work. And I want you to join me in thanking all of the people who have made this possible. First of all, of course, we have to thank our speakers. We had speakers who connected from India late in the evening, from China even later in the evening. We've had people like JPT come in person and spend a good deal of time with us. And then we have Anshu and Meenakshi who have come from India to join us this afternoon, this morning. So let's give them a big round of applause and thank you. Thank you. There's also a whole set of professional people who have helped us put the event together. We have the conference facility team. We have the IT and tech team. We have the video and live streaming team. And then we have the catering team. I'm not going to list each one of them by name. But again, folks, you know who you are. And you make our events go smoothly every time. And we thank you very much. Again, big thank you to all of you. I would also like to thank Vivek and Vandana Sharma again. We started the day by thanking them, but it's their generosity that makes it possible for us to hold events like this, open to the public and free of charge. And we're able to do it in good style thanks to their support. I know Vivek Sharma wanted to be here, and he usually never misses any of these events, but he is on a plane somewhere and regrets his inability to join us. We also had some student volunteers who are now called the CEM Student Associates. And if you're here in the room, would you please stand so we can see who you are? Thank you all for helping us. And last but not least, the person who really pulls the whole thing together, Catherine Slomsky. Where are you? Stand up. Let's give her a big round of applause. We couldn't do any of our events without Catherine's very, very hard work and also very professional work and very dependable work. I sleep well the night before these events. I didn't used to, but I do because I know Catherine is taking care of everything. Thank you, Catherine. Finally, of course, I want to thank you all, the members of the audience, and also the audience online, and Maria's mother in particular. Thank you. Oh, how do you say thank you in Bulgarian? Благодаря. Благодаря. Thank you, and thank you all of you for coming here. And as I said, we will have some time. If you want to mingle, there's still some coffee, maybe left over, or cold coffee. Hot coffee may have become cold coffee. Help yourselves to whatever is there. Stay as long as you wish. And please come to our future events. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you.